I'm afraid hope is an indulgence I don't have time for. I'm Chris Pivey.
And I'm Eddy Webb.
And today we're here to talk about the cinematic masterpiece, Matrix Revolutions. Good morning, afternoon, evening, any random time in the Matrix or the real world, listeners. I want to start off today specifically by saying that the entire reason we did this Matrix run is because this is Eddy's favorite Matrix movie. I am not lying or having hyperbole at all.
The next movie. Well, I have lots of nice things about it, but we have to get through this one to get there.
Eddy said, this 33% Rotten Tomato darling is my favorite Matrix movie. Fuck the other three.
None of those words I said in that sequence. I said none of those things in that sequence. Speaking of things that are not factual, there is something I do want to talk about, which was last episode. I mentioned that recording for this movie and the previous movie also happened along with Enter the Matrix, and it was all kind of films at the same 9-month block, and that the video game Enter the Matrix tied into what's going on with these movies. And then we had separately a lot of conversations about how maybe we would have understood these movies better if we had played Enter the Matrix, as it presented maybe a nuanced view of Zion, how all that stuff worked, and very much implied that it was an MMO. We were thinking of The Matrix Online, which is a game that came after this and carries the continuity past Revolutions. Enter the Matrix was a third-person shooter that features Niobe and Ghost specifically.
So, this is not something we've talked about. Eddy did drop a note in here that I saw that I, of course, ignored because I didn't know what the fuck it was.
Right.
Eddy, I will slightly give a correction to your correction.
Okay.
In that I knew there were two separate entities for games, and I was talking more about the MMO for the factions. For the plot points for the movie, I was specifically talking about Niobe. Like, for instance, I think the car chase scene is a scene from Enter the Matrix where she catches Morpheus. I think that's all part of the thing. Those were like the cut scenes that we talked about when it was Niobe and Persephone making out come from Enter the Matrix.
Right. Because what I've since found out was that basically, because it's relevant because there's a throwaway line at the very start of this movie which says Niobe and Ghost are off doing something, right? And then later on, Niobe and Ghost come back. But the Niobe and Ghost are off doing things is all Enter the Matrix. So you're right. Yeah, right. Basically, they kind of Rosencrantz and Guildenstern the two movies in the sense that they're off doing side things while the main action's going on.
I'm gonna put a hard foot stomp right now.
Okay.
Hard foot stomp. It is totally not related to anything related to the Matrix. Hard foot stomp. The best thing Tom Stoppard ever wrote was Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead. I said it. I stand by it to this day. All right, you're saying Matrix.
No, I completely agree with you.
I may have seen that play multiple times. I love to see it every time it comes out.
I've actually never seen it play. I've only ever seen the movie. I should watch the play at some point. I would love that. Actually,
it's fantastic. I even saw one where they did a reverse casting where there were two women in the roles for Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. Awesome.
Nice. That'd be a lot of fun. But anyway, so then if you were thinking of two separate games when we were having a discussion, that's valid. I think I had conflated them in my head. I thought Enter the Matrix was The Matrix Online.
I could separate it better.
I remembered slightly incorrectly that The Matrix Online was related to the plot of the movies, and that is correct. It takes the end of this movie and goes beyond that in a semi-canonical way because, at least for the first 9 chapters, they did work with the Wachowski sisters on the plot. And I believe that plot is honored by the next movie. I'm not 100% sure on that point.
That I don't remember.
Footage was not shot for that movie.
They gave it over to the fans to start coming up with plot lines, I think is what it was, for the Matrix.
At a certain point in time, yes. Right. Because basically how it worked, as I understand it, was Star Trek Online does this too, to a certain degree, is they basically have what they call, yes?
What's Star Trek Online?
It's an online game, Star Trek. It's pretty obvious, the title.
Which era does it take place in? Are we dealing with Kirk? Are we dealing
So,
with the
and
crafty
like
Captain
that,
Picard, the best Captain
each
Sisko?
story drop of Matrix Online is called this chapter, and so they build on each other. It's roughly about every 6 months or once a year they do a story drop, and that progresses the story. But that after around chapter 9, that a comic book writer was doing all the writing, but they're working with Wachowskis around chapter 9. They kind of just stopped doing that, and then eventually, fan action started changing the direction of Matrix Online, and it became semi-canonical territory.
Cool. So Star Trek Online.
I don't know anything about it. I know what you're talking about. What's that game?
Damn it, Batman.
I know you're trying to distract because you don't want to talk about this movie. I see your game.
God damn it, Donut. How's that one?
I'm almost done.
For anyone that's curious, I am in book 4 of Dungeon Crawler Carl, is what I'm reading.
Yes.
In my spare time, it doesn't exist.
God damn it, Donut.
All right. In case people can't tell, this may not be our favorite Matrix movie. Let's start with the good stuff. Originally, I think it had a budget of either like between 110 and 150 million, and box office wise, it grossed $427 million, which made it one of the 8th highest grossing film of 2003. While it grossed that much money, it did make a lot less than the other movies.
Right, because the previous movie made about 720 million.
And off the top of my head, I can't remember what the first movie made, but it made a crap ton of money on a budget that was like a laugh.
Right. So you can see why the studio pushed to make these two movies to make money. And then you can also see why after this, the studio pushed for another 20 years to try to make another Matrix movie, because regardless of how this was critically viewed, and I'm sure we will have lots to say on that front, it still made almost 3 to 4 times its budget. So it still made a lot of money.
So the thing is, I think budgets don't necessarily, I can't remember if these budget totals that we get take into account the marketing budget. I don't think they do. And the marketing budget is generally substantial.
Right. But
I think we're kind of more scientific in our things.
Well,
where we actually start getting out more totals.
I mean, yes, but this is also 6 months after the last movie. So there's also a certain amount of marketing headwind that the first movie also had, right? So
people have an attention span of like a gnat.
That's fair.
If it's not in front of them for over a week, they totally forget about it. I just insulted all of humanity, and I stand by it.
I'm not disagreeing with you.
So it's open on a Wednesday, and it made like 4.3 million, becoming like the 3rd highest Wednesday opening, right behind Lord of the Rings: Two Towers, Star Wars Episode 1: Phantom Menace. Like how I'm talking just more about financials this time than anything else.
So it's funny. Do you know what thing launched the previous year that made more money in its opening weekend than either of these two Matrix movies?
Do not remember.
Halo. The first Halo game made more money its opening weekends than any movie, any video game, anything in 2005 and 2006.
This was 2003.
Well, it was 2006, wasn't it? Okay, sorry. The Halo made more money than this was on my point. Because I was doing a series on the Xbox recently. It made $12 million the opening weekend.
Wow, that's ridiculous. Although Halo was played a lot when it came out, and a lot of the FOB bases overseas by military people because they can play hardware and everything.
Oh yeah,
now that I've done that myself, maybe I have. I was waiting for you to start singing the Halo song, Eddie. Is what I really thought you were going to go with.
I don't know why you have this thing that the guy with hearing loss is going to keep bursting out into song. You live your life like you think you're in a musical, and you keep getting disappointed by it, Chris.
I am, and that's my musical. It's like the disappointments of Chris Spivey, the musical. And if I'm not mistaken, was it Mozart? I think. Mozart or Beethoven, I think it was Mozart, had some hearing issues themselves, and they were phenomenal, Eddie. They knew music, they could do it all. I'm not.
They
So
did not sing. They played piano.
it's music.
Point is, you keep saying I'm going to bring out in a song. Also, I appreciate the rub, but in no way, shape, or form am I anything close to either Mozart or Beethoven.
You're so people don't understand that we're just staring at each other right now, and I'm trying to get Eddie to break, and he's like, "I'm not doing it, Spivey."
No. We're gonna get through this goddamn movie, Spivey.
What if I don't want to? What if I just literally just don't want to do it today? All right. If you want to be all, the movie actually was released worldwide on November 5th, 2003 by Warner Brothers. For 3 years, it had the highest 5-day Wednesday opening of any Warner Brothers movie until
that's why it tells
the next epic movie ever came out. The pinnacle of all Kryptonian movies, Superman Returns, beat it for opening Wednesday. You know, Superman Returns, where he's a stalker, flying around using X-ray vision to peep on Lois.
I actually forgot the movie existed until just now.
And an actor who isn't really going to be named in this podcast played Lex Luthor, and it was all a real estate scheme, and shanked him with a wooden kryptonite blade because he was in jail for a while.
Yes, okay.
It's where Cyclops gave up being Cyclops in the X-Men so he could become Lois Lane's love interest, and that didn't work out.
That guy's had a rough run. that actor's had a rough time.
Yeah.
I know a couple times he has said, I would love to play Cyclops again. Invite me back. He just hasn't.
But he's coming back now, though.
Is he?
Yeah, James Marsters. Yeah, he's Cyclops. He was in trailers and stuff. His career is also coming back around. I think I'm trying to remember why. There was some controversy around him because I think around some stuff going on with the director, he said some questionable things. I don't remember well enough to talk about it, so I'm going to say he allegedly said some things when a director allegedly did some questionable stuff that I don't remember, so I'm leaving it at that.
Okay, fair enough.
But come back around. Not only that, this movie, one of the best things I can say about The Matrix Revolutions right now is it achieved the record for having the highest international opening weekend for any R-rated film until 2015 when it was spanked by 50 Shades of Grey. Eddie is now double checking something, I think.
No, I'm not. Someone just pinged me. And also you said 50 Shades of Grey, and I immediately kind of just dropped out.
The filming of this happened concurrently with The Matrix Reloaded and the live action sequence for video games Enter the Matrix, which we kind of talked about before. Most of the filming took place at Fox Studios in Sydney, Australia. Carrie-Anne Moss hurt her ankle. Yes, Eddie.
No, I thought last episode we talked about there was a record. Was all of his movies, all three of these recorded in Australia? I don't know if we talked about that last time.
I don't think we talked about what was recorded last time. We talked about the first one being recorded there, but I think all of them were recorded primarily in Australia. Let's add that, because I think there was a park scene that was shot somewhere else and some other stuff like that. But
all right, okay.
Which I think a lot of that probably goes back to lowering the budget too, because regardless of what we're going to say, the movie is still really stylized. You can see there's money on screen, and if shot in America, I assume it would cost at least 50 to 100% more than what the budget they have.
Okay, that makes sense.
That's me making assumptions, though. So take that for what you will. Yeah. I mentioned at the top of the show, Rotten Tomatoes has this movie at an approval rating of 33%.
Seems high.
Jesus. Wow, there are going to be a lot of feels about this movie. I think people understand. Right now, Eddie, we're at about 14 minutes, and we've gone through most of our random notes for this movie. That is how quickly we're trying to jettison Escape Pod away from this film. So I'm going to slow us down.
I mean, to be fair, we talked about this last episode too. It's kind of a weird thing because this is part 2 of the previous movies in ways that we don't usually talk about. Again, it was produced at the same time. So a lot of the behind the scenes stuff for the first movie a lot also applies to this movie, right? So we've kind of covered a lot of the behind the scenes. You found some new things, which is great, but these are all kind of the same
I'm curious though if we ever did
stuff.
cover the Lord of the Rings trilogy that Jackson did, since I think they were all filmed at the same time, weren't they? And if we would be able to find a lot of different details for each one of those as it was developed.
If I remember correctly, and this is based off of Hazley Remembered DVD extras from like 15 plus years ago, they weren't done at the same time necessarily, but they were done kind of just in serial, basically. Like the first movie wrapped, everyone got like a month or 2 months of break, and then they moved into the next one. So like it wasn't like this one where everything was being filmed constantly all the same time into one big just pool of film. It was more a bit like a television show where they filmed like one movie as one season and then took a short break before moving on to the next movie. So I think it's kind of because I do know, like I remember one of them said at one point in time that they were in New Zealand for like 3, 4, maybe 5 years for some of the lead
That'd be
actors.
awesome.
So yeah,
I want to go to New Zealand. They created a custom telescoping rig called the Turning Fork that was created to enable 1 or 2 stunt people to twirl multiple times in midair while fighting one another, which we get to see. Yeah, they actually have a comment about that in there later on. The design of the main machine city was inspired by coral reefs.
very cool.
My last big thing here, because I've only seen this movie once before, as I was watching it. Eventually, when we get to like DX Machina, the big machine god, whoever it is, saw a big baby face, and I have a note, and it specifically my mind went, Why are we talking about 2001 in this movie? Because Dave becomes a giant space baby. And I feel validated because going and looking through it, I saw that the God Machine's face was modeled after the Wachowskis' own infant nephew. The child was filmed
Nice.
performing a number of facial expressions, and the Sentinel swarms were then animated to recreate the character. I knew it. I saw that big face. Like, it's a baby face. Why are we doing Space Odyssey here?
Right. Yes, and that's was the thing that happened. I mean, the problem is that also I do want to talk about that, but I want to talk about that when we're at that part of the movie. But like, it was a neat fact.
Yeah. Anything else you want to talk about the behind the scenes of this movie, Eddie?
No, I pretty much covered all the stuff I did last time. So
I have never seen you so disinterested in a film before. Even El Topo, you were more excited about just because it was so weird.
no, it's not that I'm not disinterested in this movie. It is well, I mean, if you want to tip my hand a little bit early,
we're well past that for
it's
both of us.
It's an hour too long, right? And so like it's not that I'm like blah or fuck this movie. I mean, because like El Topo, I had opinions on it, but like it was just so fucking weird. There's lots to talk about, right? It was bizarre, and I didn't get it, but I was let's talk about this guy shitting eggs in the desert. This is great, from a discussion standpoint. But this movie, in a lot of ways, is just here's more stuff from the last movie by design, and also we had to make it 2 hours long.
I guess since I made you like fully about your entire thing, I think it's gonna be pretty obvious. My entire opinion of this film is there should have been 2 Matrix films. This could have been 40 minutes attached to the end of the other movie. Done.
Yeah. It's like I was curious. I was like, I feel there is an edit of those 2 movies into one movie that exists. And sure enough, I found easily like a half dozen fan edits that do some version of that. So like I think a lot of people felt this didn't need to be 2 movies. And it's worth talking about that a little bit because everything I've been able to find, which is not much, I haven't dug too hard, admittedly, is that the studios wanted there to be 2 more Matrix movies. And the Wachowskis didn't want to do any more Matrix movies, and certainly didn't want to do 2 more Matrix movies. So it's really hard not to look at both of these movies, but specifically this film, without the knowledge that nobody really wanted to do this movie. So, I mean, that's not entirely fair. There's lots of people who worked in the movie who really worked very hard on this movie, and some of the actors have said they've enjoyed their time on it. But from the writing and the production and the direction standpoint, not very many people want to be doing this.
So essentially, we want to call them cash grab 1 and 2.
Yeah, basically, yeah. Nice, nice reference too. I see a reference there to Wonder Man. Yeah.
And if anyone's curious, my entire opinion right now that I'll give you at the moment until we cover it about the Hobbit trilogy is it should have been the Hobbit duology that Jackson made. There you go. After Mjolnir saves the crew of the Nebuchadnezzar, Neo and Bane still lie unconscious in the ship's medical bay. As Trinity sits at his bedside, a doctor drops by to give us some exposition about Bane's self-inflicted wounds. And Morpheus and the captain of Mjolnir search the Matrix for Neo. As we learn, the machines are less than 20 hours from Zion. Neo's consciousness is trapped in a subway station. A transitional zone between the Matrix and the machine world. He meets a family of programs, including a girl named Sati. Her father tells Neo the subway is controlled by the Train Man, a program loyal to the Merovingian, aka the Frenchman. When Neo tries to board a train with the family, the Train Man kicks the ever-living shit out of the one who's not the one, and overpowers him. I'm stopping there.
So, a lot of this chunk of the movie. When I first watched the movie, I was like, why do I remember this movie being so bad? Like, it's not great, but there's some interesting stuff here. Not realizing that there's some interesting concepts in the interesting movie that the rest of the movie doesn't do a fucking thing with, right? Like the whole idea of there being another tier of self-aware programs who are also renegade programs, but who don't want to destroy anything or control anything. They just want to leave. And, and the idea that they can procreate new, completely self-aware programs from the start and want them to find a way out into the world is all really interesting stuff that is completely irrelevant to anything that any three of these movies are dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
So I point that out as kind of a good representative example of why I am frustrated with this movie, is because it's just like, that's an interesting concept. It's one of the few really interesting concepts in this movie. And it's just an excuse to have yet another fight where, as you point out, the alleged powerful one that will save the universe gets the shit kicked out of him by a random guy.
Because the Train Man... I'm also doing these two a little bit out of order because Morpheus and Trinity did some stuff. We'll come back in a second. Right. The Train Man says, I created this space. So how can the Train Man create a space to do all of this stuff? And then he is subservient to the Merovingian. Right. And I'm not even getting into the fact that, Eddie, essentially we have these enslaved programs trying to get their freeborn daughter on a train out of the enslaving area.
Sure, yeah, I wasn't even going to go into that necessarily, but that's another big problem part. That again, something interesting could have been done with
run by the white enslaver.
Right. There's a lot of all three of these movies that are a certain amount of, you have accidentally stumbled on a very powerful image that you are just not going to do anything with. Which, in the first movie, was fine because, as we talked about, in retrospect, you find a lot of it was the Wachowskis fumbling around trying to figure out their trans identity in a world that didn't quite have the language or the iconography for it. And so Land was more interesting. And this is just I guess we need to do more weird esoteric shit, I guess. And that's where kind of, again, this is just an excuse to have a fight in a train station. It's patently clear that is what the point of this is.
But it's not even a fight, though. Like, we use the word fight. It is not. It's just literally someone beating down the one.
Right. And it's... we also see, like... okay, so we're kind of oscillating between... we're still oscillating between the real world and the Matrix a lot here. And also, as a minor point, right? A lot of the modern multi-part movies that we have do some form of mild kind of recap or making it clear that there's a bit of a transit. There's been time for the audience between these movies. This movie literally just picks up right after the previous movie, like, and just rolls right on. It doesn't give any concession to. It's been 6 months since you've seen the last movie. It's just like, nope, you better know where the fuck you are because we're gonna keep moving. Like literally, you could lop off the end credits of the last movie, beginning credits of the movie, stick them together, and just have a 4-hour movie.
And well, part of the issue is that we're going to encounter when we, I think, hit Niobe is the fact that there's like also the video game had stuff I think that happened here. The Enter the Matrix,
Right.
I'm going to be very specific. Video game has stuff that happens here, Find Niobe, and all this other stuff that is pertinent that becomes a throwaway line in the movie. But I'm assuming their thought is you saw the first half of this, then you played the Enter the Matrix stuff, and then you came and saw this.
Right.
I guess I'm pushing up really against the marketing idea of having 2003 be the Matrix year. They should have gone like with Matrix 2 and the video game and then dropped Matrix 3 the following year as a follow-up. It could even early in the year. So that would have given people time, excitement, work on the script.
Do rebooted in early 2003, drop the video game in late 2003 of like, remind people of some of the stuff that was going on in the first movie, and again, see the Niobe and Ghost stuff. And then you have a whole year until you drop this movie, and then spend a little time, like you said, making both these movies a little more distinct. Have a little. I mean, we did talk about there was actually an arc-ish in the first movie. It's just the last 10 minutes of the first movie is all set up for this movie, right? So yeah, just lop that off. Maybe have a line of like, "Oh no, the machines are attacking Zion." Boom, that's your cliffhanger. And then we start with, "Oh no, the machines are attacking Zion," and then take that 10 minutes, put it in front of this, because like if we had not watched these, like in my case, 5 days apart, the movie does not do anything for like an hour to tell you that Bane is Smith. Right? He just wakes up and starts murdering people until later on we start getting some hints like, oh, by the way, this guy has been obsessed by Smith. If you've forgotten that plot point, this movie is not helping you.
All right, since I did break this down into two specific parts because they're technically broken up into two groups, is there anything else you want to touch on for this before I bring in Morpheus and Trinity, and then we might recap a little bit the whole thing?
I guess the only other thing that I talked about a little bit last time is that I put the theory that all of the rogue programs were ultimately, can they land in some form of 7 deadly sins, right? And specifically, I had said the Merovingian and his wife were different forms of love and lust, and Smith was wrath. I think based on this movie and specifically the family of programs, it seems like the answer is no, with the exception of Smith. All of the rogue programs seem to be trying to understand the concept of love. It seems like they're really focused on love, which, again, it's disappointing because, as you pointed out, this is a love story, and the movie is going to make it super clear. You need to know at all times that anything that Neo does from this point forward will always be in the context of his relationship with Trinity.
For the moment.
Right. Until Trinity becomes unnecessary to the plot, which we'll get to.
Morpheus and Trinity get the call from Seraphim to come into the Matrix, so they jack in. And they meet the new Oracle, who informs them of Neo's confinement. Seraphim, Morpheus, and Trinity hit up Club Hell, and then they go in and they fight their way into that club. By the way, that's a club I think I'd go to. Big fight, then we get a confrontation with the Merovingian, and they force him to release Neo by holding a gun to his head, which is something I think they could have done in the second movie, which would have been a lot faster with the plot along with having to do all this other stuff. And why does pulling a gun on him this time work, Eddie?
Because, don't know. Which is a sad part because, like, this is one of the few parts of the movie I actually really enjoyed.
like that fight scene where they're in there is a cool redo of, like, I think the first fight scene from the first Matrix movie. It's not as enthralling, even if they have people jumping on the ceiling. And Seraphim's
Well, I
cool.
mean, like, you're right. It is basically the bank lobby scene done again. Um, but they have some interesting reverse gravity stuff, which is that tuning fork thing you were talking about before, I think.
Yeah.
And the idea of first they fight on, some people standing on stage, on the floor, and then in the middle of it, they're standing on the pillars, and so there's different gravity planes which they're fighting is interesting. Another point is that the guy playing Seraphim, up till now, Seraphim has been generally on one-on-one fights, right? Which they can then choreograph pretty well. This is now him in a larger scale fight, and it is super clear how much better this actor's fighting skills are than everybody else in that scene.
Yeah.
And so it's cool because I like to see him fight, but it's frustrating because it's like up to now I have been kind of accepting, well, it's all stylized, whatnot. And that's like, no, literally he's just better than everybody else on screen, and it's now super obvious. I can't unsee that.
But I think that's also why they tried to move him to using guns. So then you
Right.
detract from that fact.
Right. But we get back to, which is, I was surprised at how long it's been gone, but like genuinely like funny, badass quips, right? Like Seraphim going, you know, they're going to check us for guns, and then pulls up 2 guns into screen and starts loading them. And so if we're lucky to be one person at the front, and Trinity, who then also starts loading a gun, goes, "What if there's more than one?" He's like, "Well, then it'll be not lucky then." And it's just like, this is a shit I liked about the first movie, but like it's just this small chunk of it that's happening.
Okay. Before I go any more to the fight, I want to take a step back for the new Oracle. The actress here is doing a lot of heavy lifting because she's stepping into a role that someone else has had. And then they brought the other actresses passing into the movie to give her like a new face and form and everything else, and they tried to wrap into the plot.
Right.
I don't. The fact that literally Oracle tells Morpheus to make up his own damn mind is undercutting the entire arc of Morpheus up till now, trying to figure shit out himself and realizing that his faith has been arbitrarily put into things it shouldn't have.
Yeah, like I am inclined to put a lot of my dislike of the new Oracle on the writing because, like you said, it's not this actor's fault. I mean, we all really loved the woman who played the first Oracle. I'm sure everyone's upset that she passed away. But yeah, I mean, it's like, I almost feel like they should have gone more Doctor Who with it in the sense of just have the Oracle be completely different. And say, by the way, I'm the Oracle. And then this stuff would have landed a little better in the sense of, oh, this is a completely different Oracle. She's now saying completely different things, and that's weird. And make that the plot point. But instead, this kind of does neither really well, right? It's trying to give sense that it's the same Oracle, but she had some kind of vague cost, which again, a cool bit. Again, there's some things I like about the very first movie is like, we're just going to give you random bits of world building and then never really talk about it. And it's like, what's the cost? Why is the cost? Why does the cost call you, look different? I'm curious about that now. But I also know very obviously that is just a Band-Aid on this is why the actor looks different.
Yeah.
But if you're going to do that Band-Aid anyway, you don't need to have someone play basically the exact same role in the exact same sets and very similar clothing. Because yeah, and the stuff she's saying now just doesn't make sense with what even in the previous movie she was saying, and definitely the first movie. So it's like it's really easy. I know a lot of fans have basically dinged the actor for her performance, and I feel like that's not her fault. I feel like a lot of bad creative decisions that put her in that space gave her a bad hand, and she's doing the best she can with a bad hand.
And so, to some extent, it is either I'm torn if it would almost have been better to kind of never have shown us Oracle's face, so she was like facing back towards Morpheus. And I'm not sure if they would have had the family's permission to kind of use some CGI aspects if we had to see the Oracle.
Right.
And I'm sure they had enough footage they could have used a voice from the other actress. Or if they do how some BBC shows do, like for God, what's it called? Like the 3 supernatural creatures all living together in an apartment, like the vampire, the werewolf, and the ghost.
I know what you're talking about. I can't think of the name of it you're talking about.
But whatever, like in that show, they had cast changes, but they were still the same character. They just did not acknowledge it. Hey, right. Adrian. Like, boom. I don't know if that would have been better, but what they've done here has a bad resonance with me as a viewer. And to some extent, I do want to give them, at least for what they're going for, some credit, because I think this is an actress who played a sister to the other actress in Broadway in a performance of something. So there's some connection there. So this actress may have felt motivated to come and take on the role. I don't know. I'm like spitballing. But
sure, yeah.
Because that was her friend. Because I know that for the Residents, Andre Braugher passed away, and that's why Giancarlo Expedita stepped into that role, because he was his friend, to honor him.
Right. And as much as I made the reference I did, I have to acknowledge this is 2003, and actually this does change slightly. Well, I was gonna say, because for some reason I had in my head this is all 2006, but this is 2003. Doctor Who was not popular in the US at this point in time. BBC America is not showing Doctor Who yet. But we're also far enough away from James Bond, where James Bond just being randomly recast is seen as a bit old-fashioned. So I could see, again, the argument of we can't make her radically different because the audiences won't understand that. Although, again, I would argue that the audience understanding what the movie was about was what made the first movie popular, and I think everyone's forgotten that. But whatever. This was just frankly a hard position, and it's not helped by the fact that even in the last movie, you and I both were like, I don't like the direction the Oracle's going in, and this is even worse because, like, in the last movie, we didn't like the direction she was going in, but at least she was doing something, right? We didn't like what she was doing, but she was doing something. She had a role compared to the architect, and why she was the Oracle made sense, even though we didn't like the answer for it. That's where my midichlorians argument came up, which is like, I didn't want to answer for it, but at least, there is an answer now, I guess. And then in this movie, it just throws it all back out again. And now it's like, why is the Oracle even here? Except for being the guy, the person that the French guy can creepily threat with wanting to take her eyes for no apparent reason. And it's just like, why did we need that?
So, all right, I wanted to touch on the Oracle bit before we go back to the club. And it's, of course, it's called Hell. It's spelled like the Norse word with one L, and there's a whole bunch of Christian imagery. The Merovingian has like a devil thing going on.
Right.
We get more stuff about how Trinity loves Neo, so she would do anything. She's a wild card. In the eyes of the Oracle, and that's when Trinity says, we're not doing that shit. They free Neo. Yay!
Right. And last time we both had the question of why do we need the Merovingian? And here, I still do not have an answer to that question. Like, the only thing the Merovingian has brought to us, besides a couple of cool scenes, and that's not by his fault, it just happened in the course of finding him. The only thing that's relevant to the scene is Trinity admitting that she would do anything for Morpheus, which is not anything we were ever in doubt of. Right? She said the words here, but like, she didn't. We all knew that she was ride or die for Neo anyway, so we didn't really need to have her say those words.
Yeah. So I don't know.
But hey, Seraph's there.
Troubled by visions of the Machine City, Neo visits the Oracle, who treats him a lot better than she did, Morpheus and Trinity, who reveals that Smith intends to destroy both the Matrix and the real world, but not that weird train man world that is not referenced at all again. She tells him everything that has a beginning has an end. After Neo leaves, a large group of Smiths step in, and they get both Sati and Seraphim. The Oracle doesn't resist assimilation, and Smith looks at her very quizzically and she says, Smith, you're a bastard. And he says, you'll know, Mom. And Smith gains her powers of precognition and laughs maniacally.
Yeah, this... I love Hugo Weaving, man. Hugo Weaving understands the assignments here. I give him that, which is you need to be full-on melodramatic villain at this point in time. And it's like, cool, great. He gets it. He's doing it. No notes about that. But everything around what Smith's doing here, script-wise, is just... It's not even nonsense. It's just padding, right? It's just... We've been told the whole chunk of the movie, Smith's getting out of control and he's summoning everyone. I mean, the whole last movie was Smith's out of control and he's summoning everyone. Now it's like, oh, now he's summoning characters that actually have names that we care about. And he does it very quickly, right? Like, if this had been a slow burn of like characters we care about, I'm not counting Bane at this point, right? Bane was just the way to get him into the real world. It's like if we kept seeing characters in the second movie and then like one of them got assimilated by Smith and then another one at the beginning of this movie, then another, like, yeah, if it happens scattered throughout it, there would be more of a creeping dread. But one thing I will say about this chunk of the movie is this is the first time since the first movie where the bits of horror genre that were in the first movie start actually showing up again. Because Rebooted was a lot of action stuff. And it's fine. I like the action stuff. But this one's like, oh, okay, you remember that you're also a horror film. But it's all kind of crammed into the Smith chunk. It's done well. It's shot well. It's actually genuinely a little creepy. But plot-wise, it's like, yeah, I know he assimilates stuff. Why are you telling me this hour 3 of this 2-part thing?
So if they've known now, we'll say for like 10 hours, that Smith can assimilate people, and Neo's seen it because he fought them all. He knew even longer than that. Why have they not tried to do anything to counterbalance Smith's assimilation of people as he goes through?
Right? Also,
like, just...
and like, I assume they sent Sati to the Oracle because they thought she could defend Sati, but clearly that didn't happen. And so Smith makes the joking question, did you anticipate this? And that question is going to answer. It's like, no, really, why didn't she anticipate this?
Well, we get the fact, though, a spoiler, that maybe she did anticipate it, Eddie.
Right. Well, yeah, we'll get there. But like at this point in time in the movie, I'm just like, so the Oracle has moved from she has all the answers and everyone believes in her blindly to throughout this whole movie, her going, I don't know, or figure your own shit out. Because the Neo is basically just, you're the one, when it's like, and they literally have the reverse of the first conversation from the first movie in the same kitchen.
Yeah.
Which, again, because it's a new actor, feels weird and wrong. But again, she died, and they may have already built the sets and planned this out before she passed away. So like, I don't want to put that much emphasis on it. I feel like if she was still around, the idea was it's meant to be an exact parallel to that one, but she's saying the exact opposite of what she said before, and that was the whole point of it. But because of how things landed, the whole scene feels like it is a hollow shell of the first movie, which frankly has been a weird feeling throughout both of these films, but in particular right around now.
Yeah, and I understand. I think I understand what they're trying to do is because Neo coming here, and for instance, like in the other movie, she offered Neo, I think, candy or whatever it was. That was like essentially the red pill, and he took it. And here, he doesn't have time to take it. And she makes some comment about, I was expecting you, but like a little bit later. She's trying to show us that like Neo is evolving, I guess, in some sense. So he's working off the program.
Right.
But then we come in to have Smith, who also kind of like flips over and destroys the cookies, but his are more intentionally done. So they're trying to create parallels, but it feels more like they're trying to take big leaps to the parallels without really making them meaningful, at least to me as a viewer.
Right. And there's, in the middle of all of this, because we have Smith confronting the Oracle directly, I realized there's an interesting potential parallel, but it still doesn't quite work. But I could have seen a version where it worked, which is Smith was an agent of order who slowly and eventually embraces chaos, right?
Yeah.
And the Oracle was another agent of order who has become swept into the maelstrom of chaos. And the Architect is the agent of order who refuses to acknowledge that chaos is a factor in his design. So like, and in the middle of this, you then could argue the Merovingian is the order, is the program who embraced chaos at the beginning and went a certain direction with that. The problem is that nothing on the screen reinforces this, but like there's enough here of like both Smith and the Oracle starting off to, even though they were never in the same scene together, starting off as being ostensibly the same goals, which is to preserve the order of the matrix of the simulation. But now at the third movie have realized they're completely opposite sides of things. But even that boils down to a bunch of non sequitur questions from the Oracle and Smith just ranting at her before absorbing her. So like all that is just not even there really.
But in the second movie at the end, where we have that big scene with Colonel Sanders and Neo, Colonel Sanders is telling Neo that they created like the first Matrix that was like this perfect, beautiful world humans can do it. I think they said they created like another Matrix that was all horror, but then they had to introduce an element of choice, and like the Oracle is there to provide choice, provide the illusion of choice, very specific wording, and which is what the Oracle does. So the Oracle is the mother. I'm using finger quotes, so they're calling her, especially with Smiths, to give like people the illusion that they have a choice, which then means that everything Neo's still doing now is still part of the program.
Right.
Even Neo's rebellion is part of the program. Like, and I stand by, I still think, because I'm only going off the movies that we've seen so far, that the machines built Zion and they put the humans there so they could have their own controlled rebellion that spikes up and they can eradicate it. Spikes up and eradicate it. Because it's all part of the program.
Okay, yeah, fair. Like when we talked about last one, neither of us had watched this movie, and so I was holding out hope that maybe this movie would explain that. Nope, nothing about the architect comes up ever again. So we have to assume what you're saying.
To the end.
Okay, but still, the relevant point is that we don't really see anything that invalidates what he told us about that point. So I have to concede that yeah, they did destroy and rebuild Zion, which makes no fucking sense.
Because they are creating their own rebellion for humans because humans need to feel like they're struggling against something, and that's what it gives them.
Yeah.
Even more so, if we double down on when Neo had insomnia in the last movie, and he meets a counselor, and that counselor says, "I have insomnia, I slept too long," and the counselor specifically talks about how humans need the machines, and the machines need the humans to be in like sync, a sort of a symbiotic relationship, which is what Neo's going to take and run with for us this movie. But like, it's all kind of there. But then that means I'm trying to figure out like, because I have not gone into Matrix theory, everyone else has. I'm going off seeing it a couple times. Does that, and Neo's able to control stuff in the real world, makes me think that it is and I haven't read the book either. Now I want to read the book that they based a lot of stuff.
There's a
book? I'm sorry, what?
I didn't know there was a book.
No, so the philosopher that they based everything off of, like his Simmaculum, whatever it was that we talked about.
Okay.
So I want to read that to see if the real world is in fact just another like facsimile that they think they're doing things in, and like Zion is in fact. I'm jumping to spoilers somewhat towards the end because this is where my brain is right now. Is I'm thinking because Neo refers to seeing. No, I'm gonna wait. I'll wait till we get there. I got a whole bunch of thoughts that all came into me once when we were talking about the Oracle.
I mean, I think it's still valid to say that, like, in the first movie, the Oracle was mysterious and cryptic, and that was exciting and interesting. And here, the Oracle is mysterious and cryptic, and it's frustrating and boring.
Yes. So she doesn't answer Neo's questions why Neo can control stuff in the real world. No one does.
Right.
She talks about the source. I'm trying to see if there's anything really pertinent from my note specifically. Nah.
Well, you do have an interesting note here about her conversation about the source undercuts the architect, and I was curious what you meant by that. Or do you not remember
what? I don't remember
by that?
Fair enough. I don't remember now because I went off into my other theory that I have in my brain that's taking up more space.
Okay, fair enough. That's fine. That's fine.
I'll leave it there. Anything else for a move on?
Nope, let's move on.
In the real world, the captain questions Bane in front of the crew, who answers questions very Smith-like. Neo continues to see visions as the crew of the Nebuchadnezzar and Mjolnir find and reactivate Niobe's ship, the Logos. They interrogate Bane, who says that he has no recollection of the earlier massacres as the captain plans the defense of Zion. Neo requests a ship to travel to the Machine City alone, motivated by her encounter with the Oracle, her throwaway line, and probably the video game. Niobe offers him the Logos.
All right, so let me start by saying this movie has done nothing but reinforce that Locke was right the whole time. Right? Because last movie, you were like, Locke is right. Now I was like, I don't know, there's a few things. And we were kind of a little disagreeing on that point. But here it's like, we are supposed to be following Morpheus and Neo and all of them, but everything Locke is saying is just making just so much sense in this conversation of like, why would I just give you a ship? No. And then like Neighbor's like, what's my ship? I give it up. It's like, yes, but we need all of the ships to defend Zion. It's the other captain saying this stuff, but it's the same stuff Locke's saying to the council in other scenes. Like I'm attributing it all to Locke right here. Because then like at one point, Locke's talking to the council. I think it's a chunk where Locke's talking to the council. It's like, here's what we're going to do, and here's probably going to die. And then one counselor, the guy who talked last movie, is like, but what about Nebuchadnezzar? And he's like, fuck the Nebuchadnezzar. I don't give a shit. They're probably dead.
That's why my quote is Locke's. Locke is my quote for this movie. Because as viewers, we're trying to think of it more of like we're on the journey, we're on the adventure with Neo. It's generally how as a viewer thinks of it. But the movie isn't. The movie is sort of highlighting both aspects of it. If you highlight both aspects of it, thinking practically for a city full of the only free humans that have to free the rest of humanity, you want to defend as much as you can. You can't give away all your resources on a vain hope and a chance. You can't trust that Luke can fly that X-Wing down that shaft without a working... Oh, I'm sorry. Did I just go Star Wars?
Well, but I mean, that's actually a good point, right? Because when Luke goes off script and follows the Force in in episode 4, he's doing it in the midst of a military operation.
Yeah.
Right. And yeah, I mean, the only reason why he does get court-martialed and gets a medal instead is because he ends up being right. But, well, I mean, in a sense, he blew up the Death Star.
Oh, I'm not saying he's not right. You're saying the only reason he didn't get it is because he's right. If he wasn't episode 4, a potential love interest for Princess Leia,
also fair.
Luke would have been court-martialed.
Okay, also fair, right? But my point is, like, that's again in the middle of a military operation. He kind of goes off book and then deals with the non-consequences of that decision. And of course, his buddy, the smuggler, also comes in to back him up, which again helps. Here,
one of the best characters.
Right here. Actually, side note. Link has very strong Han Solo vibes in this movie, so I want to put that out because I was thinking of it. Anyway, here, Neo and Morpheus are directly undercutting a military operation, and not even like we want to destroy the Death Star because it's an existential threat for long term. It's like, no, we're being attacked right now within 20 hours. Like, by this time tomorrow, we will be dead. And cool, I'm just going to go off and go on a vision quest with the ship off over here and talk to the machines that historically have never talked to us because I think I can do it. And Morpheus, one of the captains, is like, yeah, that's totally a valid thing. And then he talks to another captain, his ex-girlfriend, like, yeah, no, you totally have my ship. And it's like, what is happening to my commands?
But this is where we get the Oracle, who treated Morpheus different than everyone else, obviously treated Niobe differently because she said Neo will need you, and you get Niobe saying like 2 ships, 2 directions. It must be destiny.
Right, and it's just because she basically gives Trinity's line again, which is that this is what she told me. The Oracle told me off screen, and what did she tell you? Well, it was the thing I needed to hear. And that kind of mysterious, I don't know what she said until it's plot relevant, works once. But it's basically Trinity's arc has just been transplanted onto Niobe without any thought or consequences to what that does to Niobe as a character.
Yeah. So it's
Now, I do want to reiterate, the guy playing Bane does a fantastic Hugo Weaving impression.
I think that's why I got hired.
Probably. It's probably exactly why I got hired, but boy, howdy, he does a really good job. Like, there's no CGI, and as far as I can tell, like, Hugo Weaving didn't dub his voiceover or anything. It's just the guy.
No,
but there's a
just
couple
him.
of times where he like, especially when he's bloodied and he's covered in blood. It's slightly later scene, I think, from this, but still, he actually kind of looks like Mr. Smith, but there's no makeup or trickery to make that happen. He's just, the guy looks a lot like Hugo Weaving and sounds eerily like Hugo Weaving, and so it works really, really, really well in a practical way.
And since we didn't really talk a lot about the council there, we briefly touched on it. The fact that you do have Locke still trying to convince the council of things here in the city. Does it happen here? No, I think my other note's somewhere else. No, it is here. In the city, they're getting ready to go and defend against the machines. We even have like Z, who is married to Link, is going to like help fight. They're like packing shells. I love it. I love it because it shows you that like they have to manually do those things. They have to be prepared. But Eddie, we've watched a lot of anime, right?
Right.
How old does a mecha pilot need to be, in your opinion, as an anime watcher, Eddie?
I was wondering if you mentioned that, because I was like, there. Finally, after almost a movie and a half, the franchise remembers, by the way, we're an anime-inspired thing, so at some point in time, we have to have a 16-year-old pilot a mech.
Like, I'm highlighting the note for you. It is in there. It's like,
I know.
Age limit? And
the reason why there's an age limit, Chris, is because the trope is straight out of fucking Mobile Suit Gundam. The kid who's too young to get into a suit gets into a suit and turns out to be secretly brilliant at piloting mecha. There is that arc. That's exactly what's happening in this movie.
But he doesn't pawn a mecha in the end at all.
Like, he does.
Later
in the movie, he absolutely does. He dies, Chris.
The kid does not die, Eddie.
Well, no, he doesn't die, but the guy who says he can't do it is the pilot that ends up dying, and he takes that guy's suits and pilots it later in the movie.
No, you're right. I'm sorry. I specifically blocked out of my mind. The black mentor character dies, so the young white character can jump in and pilot a mech. I'm sorry, I blocked that out of my brain.
Yes. Again, super problematic, but it is very clearly a reference to Mobile Suit Gundam. 16-year-olds can totally pilot war machines.
Eddie, Hiro Yui, the best mecha pilot ever.
Yes.
I'm not going to necessarily stand by it, but I'll state it. Was what, 13?
Right, totally. Absolutely. That's exactly what's happening here. And since we're here, I will say these suits are both really, really cool, because again, we are 4 years before the Transformers live action movie. So like, you can see kind of the visual effects that have gone to inform that movie, but also separately wildly impractical, because they have these big armored suits, and then like the entire front is just completely open and exposed, and you can just get shot super easily.
And I think they were going for the power lifter vibe from Alien.
Yep, 100%. Completely agree with that.
If you know that your entire city is going to be attacked by machines someday, you don't leave your human body exposed. Like, that is the part you cover. Mind you, they probably couldn't have a lot of... You know what? They could have sensors, because look at the fucking ships they have. There's no reason that they're open.
Right. This is 1,000% Star Wars through the lens of Aliens, the sequel. But like when it's a loader, that makes sense, because it was a piece of construction equipment, and you have to have easy way of getting out of it in case something falls or breaks. You want to be able to get out of it. That makes sense why it would be exposed and easy to move yourself from. If your entire thing is we're going to get shot by alien sperm, we should probably have something in the front that stops us from being shot by the alien sperm. Because they look like sperm, Chris.
All right, Eddie. My last bit here before we move on. If you think Bane is potentially a mass murderer, it's there. The captain doesn't trust him. And it's like, Doc, get me answers. Why would you leave the doctor alone with him in a room? Why? That not restraint, like no restraints, no nothing. You know what? You go with that mass murderer over there, Doc. Let us know what happens.
And it's a scene a bit later, but I doubt we're going to cover it. one of the captain's subordinate comes up to him and was like, Bane killed the doctor, and now he's escaped. And the captain's like all shocked and surprised by it. It's like, motherfucker, you were the one that put the seed in doubt that he was killing people to us before. Why are you now? What, the guy I thought was mass murder turned out to kill somebody? Who could have predicted this? You! Literally, you predicted this.
Didn't even send a red shirt. Neo and Trinity depart unknowingly, taking Bane, who is stowed away on the Logos. Smith's fleshy puppet takes Trinity hostage. What the fuck? Neo realizes that Smith has assimilated Bane after Bane tells him repeatedly so he'd understand it. I don't know why Neo can't get it. And a fight ensues. Aboard Mjolnir, they discover Maggie's body, but the captain decides not to return after them because it's too dangerous. Because he could drop an EMP on them, how he did the other ships. Bane burns Neo's eyes out with a power cable, blinding him. Neo discovers that he can see machines through the source code in the world and uses his ability to kill Bane. Trinity pilots to the machine city.
Use the source, Luke.
And Eddie, they hold hands, so it's so lovely when Trinity holds Neo's hand and
So Smith kidnapping Trinity. There's a lot of yuck about it, but I will say one of the things I liked about that dynamic is it could have so easily been Smith going, now I have flesh, and I'm going to indulge in the pleasures of flesh. No, the whole time Smith is like, humans are so disgusting, and I hate being inside of them. And the reason why I've captured this woman is because she has thwarted me in the past 2 movies, and I'm mad about that. So like, there's a logic there. The problem is, I think to your point is, for this all to happen, Trinity has to be massively undercut as a character.
Yes.
She has to become a literal damsel to make this scene work, and that is just, it does significant damage to her character that she will not recover from.
And they did it last movie too, and now they're doing it again, and
at least in the last movie, she had a whole highway sequence to kind of, show that, maybe this was a fluke, but then they do it again, and she has no compensating scene in this movie. So it's like, yes, we had the fight in the club, but that was just as much Morpheus and Seraph as it was her. Maybe less.
God, it was. Yeah. Eddie, I'm done at this point in the movie. I just want you to know, like, I'm done, like past done. I don't even know if like the hour-long fight. Nope, the hour-long fight scene's not here yet. But I'm done at this point.
No, not there yet. Yeah, we're not there yet. Honestly, weird. It's funny you say that because same. When I was like, oh god, Neo is literally Daredevil now, I was like, all right, I don't think this movie's gonna get me back.
What? Neo's not Daredevil. You don't want to know who Neo is?
He's blind and can see by sensing the energies around him. He's Daredevil.
Do you know who Neo is? No, my friend, you're incorrect. I will say you're incorrect. Do you know who Neo is?
Obviously, I don't, because I think he's Daredevil.
Neo is Muad'Dib.
No, I still say Daredevil.
Because Muad'Dib is blinded and goes into the desert, rides sandworms.
I don't see any sandworms.
Really? I think the big Anyway, we will agree to disagree. I can see why you say Daredevil.
The point is that there is a problematic trope of this person is disabled, and so they get more power as a result, which we talked about way back when we covered Daredevil, so I won't rehash and relitigate that here. But basically, this is just more the same of that bullshit.
I just think you start singing the theme song to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Okay, I don't see the reference, but all right.
Whenever you say Daredevil, I always think Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles because that's how Daredevil got his superpowers.
Yes. Right, because
in case anyone's curious, is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles?
Super turtle power.
I was pulling out my Kirk long pause before I did it. All right, anything else about this scene where he hits Neo in the face with a power cord that's just laying around the ship?
No, I think that's fine.
Zion shipyard is overwhelmed by hordes of sentinels. Niobe and Morpheus rush towards Zion in Mjolnir. Morpheus, our super cool character from the first movie, is literally a co-pilot doing nothing. The humans attempt to defend the city of Zion. Massive battle going on, and I don't give a shit about anyone because they didn't develop any of their characters beforehand. Other than Link, who's safe. Sorry, other than Locke, who's safe in a command center. I don't care about anybody that dies. Literally nobody. I glaze over for this entire part of the movie, which you may have noticed because I forgot the guy died. Fatally wounding the captain instructs a kid to open the gate for Mjolnir, which he does with the aid of Z. When it arrives, it discharges its EMP, disabling all present sentinels. But Zion's remaining defenses. The humans are forced to retreat and wait for the next attack, thinking it will be their last because Locke tells you destroyed all our defenses, motherfuckers. And my big note here is Mecha, go, Gundam, go.
Right, which we already discussed is a 16-year-old piloting a mecha. Now, this is, and the thing is, the sad part is you're not even exaggerating. This is almost dead on an entire hour of the movie we just glossed over, right?
Yeah.
It is blatant padding. It is a bunch of characters who are threatened. There's a character introduced in the beginning of this movie who is the gunner that Z is supporting. And then she has a whole arc that's supposed to care about her. Like, she literally did not exist before the start of this chunk of the movie, right? Yep. So this is just blatant padding. You chop almost all of this out. Nothing gets lost in the movie. All of that said, there are a couple things I actually do like about this chunk of the movie. They're small, but they are present. One, it was visually interesting to take the kind of Star Wars / Alien first movie grungy aesthetic and extrapolate it to a war scene. Even Star Wars is slightly more stylized than this. Like, most of the big Star Wars scenes are like on planets. We don't have this kind of same massive war scale of people. So we haven't actually seen something like this quite like this. At least I haven't in a while. So okay, that's interesting. And because they had to pad so much of this out, the logistics of warfare becomes an interesting subplot in this chunk of the movie. Like, we have to get ammunition to the guns, and that's presents certain logistical problems. Or the person carrying the big rocket launcher needs to have someone with them to carry the shells. And how do they get into these awkward spaces? Like, one point in time, Z's holding her gunner like over the edge by her belt. So the logistics of how this is all working in the command center stuff. There's interesting stuff in the command center. Like, we have to get these pieces over to here, and this, this parts fall back here. It's not just random stuff yelled to make things tense. There's actually a rough battle plan actually happening on screen, which you can kind of track if you were inclined to. But that is because I was trying desperately to find something I liked about this chunk of the movie, because it was so obvious what was happening here, and it just kept going.
Yeah.
They didn't even cut much between Neo and Trinity. Like Trinity and Neo just leave for like half an hour.
Because they needed to make this into a movie and not just something they could have tacked onto the end of the other movie.
Yeah,
and you feel it,
and it
much
also
how
feels
you feel it in the second Hobbit movie with Smaug. I'm just saying, I'm not at all dinging that movie.
Sure.
How I'm dinging it right now.
It's the thing also has a lot of, we can film all of this with this entire separate cast of characters, separate from Neo and Morpheus and Trinity. All them. It's like you can film this stuff simultaneously if you need to, right? And then the justification of these scenes means that we can then use those assets to like also film our stuff with Niobe and Ghost and do our video game stuff. So like, it feels like this is the not B team in a dismissive sense, but like, it's our second cinematography team that can go off and do this stuff while the first stuff's happening, so we can make two things at once and stretch our budget that way. But if the battle for Zion had something that was like the start of this movie, right? Like I said, oh no, the aliens are coming. movie starts. Oh no, the aliens are here, or the computers, the machines are here. I keep saying aliens, but they're basically the same thing. And then all the stuff that Neo and Morpheus and Trinity are trying to do is happening in the context of the siege, right?
Yeah.
And as we're cutting back and forth between it, I probably would care a lot more about this, but I just absolutely don't.
And we've been like giving our random ideas how we would help the movie along if we were making it way back in the day. But part of it is, for me, it goes back to the very simple thing that if they knew they had to make this one big epic movie and they're going to cut into two, the characters in this combat scene should have been introduced more predominantly in the second movie in some way. And
Yep.
I know that I know people say, well, they have the kid. The kid was in Animatrix and woke himself up. He was in that movie. That's not enough. Like,
no.
And his entire arc is, Neo, you're the best. You needed to introduce other characters and giving them like little subplots. And
right.
Most of the characters who are running around, like the captain, like the gunner who works with Z, they should have been friends beforehand. Even if they're just having like a drink at the bar and she complaining about how much she's upset that Link goes off with Morpheus. That would have built a relationship and let us care about that character, which we don't have.
And it's like, it's funny because this is 2003, and yet watching this, I'm struck with these people haven't learned the Marvel problem, or more accurately, Marvel has not learned from these Matrix movies, which is something that we've talked about. Matrix, Marvel Phase 2, I forget what the phases break down to, but basically, there was the point like late 2018, 19, 2020-ish, where you really couldn't follow any of the movies without also following the TV shows.
Yeah.
And so the movies became kind of gibberish if you didn't know all the other tenant stuff around what this movie was doing. And this is what's happening here, right? Because like there's stuff with Ghost and Niobe where they're really tight in a team, and again, they're doing their own kind of slight Han Solo-ish stuff. Although then Morpheus comes in and becomes her co-pilot and also stuff too. And so like it's written like we should be caring a lot more about Niobe as a character. And if I had played Enter the Matrix, maybe I would, right? Or you said the Animatrix has leads in and side stories for all these characters that we see in this chunk of the movie, and it's like cool, but this scene only works if you're relying on your audience having done all of the attendant media, and that's not how you should do this.
No, you can't count on people to do homework.
Right. If anything, if you were going to spin this off, another way to possibly fix this is make this a direct-to-DVD release, right? It's like, do you want to see the entire siege of Zion? Cool, we'll show you the whole Zion war film as a separate DVD release. And then the actual movie just shows you bits and pieces of it. And it's like, whatever happened to that kid? You know, he mentioned that the guy died on screen. Whatever happened to him? Okay, we'll have to watch the War to Zion movie to see what happened there. You know, that's how it should go. It should flow from the spine of the franchise out to tie-in media. Tie-in media should not be required viewing for the spine, and that's clearly what's happened here.
Absolutely. And to your point, though, the battle scene does have some great visuals.
Yeah.
And they even look great today, which 20 odd years later is a testament to the vision and the work that went into it.
No, I mean, we've said it before, but I'll keep saying it. The CGI in 2003 in this movie I would see these kinds of things, expect these kinds of things in a movie today. Like there's a couple of bits where it gets a little ropey, and there's one point in particular it gets ropey, which I'll talk to in a second. But as far as this chunk in particular, it's like I was watching this going, this is what I expect to see. If there was a Marvel, like a Nova movie or whatever, that had kind of, here's a big sci-fi space battle, I would expect it to look roughly like this. So, you know, it aged beautifully in that regard.
The Logos is besieged by machines, guarding Machine City. Neo shuts several of them down with a wave of his hand, but almost passes out from near exhaustion. To avoid their attacks, Trinity flies up above the clouds, glimpsing the sky for the first time. Beautiful, breathtaking. Before crashing into a building, impaled by debris, Trinity declares her love for Neo one last time before dying. Neo enters Machine City and encounters the leader of Machine City in the form of DX Machina. Neo warns that Smith threatens both machines and humans. He offers to stop Smith in exchange for peace with Zion. DX Machina agrees. The Sentinels stop attacking Zion, as chords rise up, giving Neo a chair.
Oh my god. This
What, DX Machina?
Weirdly, that is the piece of this I have the least issue with. It's like, of course you're really called God in the Machine. Of course you are. In a movie where people are called the Architect and Mr. Smith, it's like, that doesn't bother me at all. No, what bothers me is Trinity died because she saw some sky. Right? Like, I remember way back in the first movie when Morpheus was talking about how they got to here, and they have the TV set in the White Room, and they're going through it, and he makes a passing comment about how the machines have put basically there's a cloud cover over the entire world because machines
humans did that,
or whatever. Yeah, regardless,
humans did it to stop the machines from using.
Because they're solar powered. Right. That okay. I knew it was something to do with the machines. So that's big. I remember that line, and then it's like we have to this whole. She flies over and sees the sky and then dips back in. Feels purely because it's we have to pay off that one line in the first movie, right? And I was like, I genuinely blurted out, "Why don't you just have the bat plane fly in front of the fucking moon?" Because that's what that whole scene felt like.
I love it. The fact that DX Machina bothers you the least. It bothers me a lot. But Trinity flying above the skyline, that piece doesn't bother me because it's a good character arc for someone who's never seen the sun, yada, yada, yada. But it's the fact that if it's so easy for them to fly above the skyline in their ship built for going underground, why can't the machines fly above the skyline?
Right.
That's the part that bothers me. Not Trinity seeing it. I'm perfectly fine with that. That's
no. I mean, like the fact she sees it and finds it beautiful, that doesn't necessarily bother me. It bothers me only in the sense that she has been so diminished as a character that what could have been a brief moment of joy in this hard woman's life kind of doesn't land that way anymore because of all the damage that been done to her in this movie.
Yeah.
But like the scene itself, I didn't have issue with it. You're right. It's the logic of you just pop up and there's blue sky, right? And it's like, wait, what? You know? Mm-hmm. And then the fact that she dies almost immediately after that, which is a massive problem for a lot of reasons. I mean, she doesn't need to die. It was done purely to motivate Neo, which needed new motivation.
Are they pulling a Kyle Rayner? Is that what you're saying?
That's what it feels like, honestly. And then, look, we've been really very nice about Keanu Reeves. Again, he seems like a lovely guy. I actually genuinely like him as an actor. His portrayal of grief is definitely one of his weak spots, particularly in 2003. So it really feels like the love of his life died, and he just got right up and started talking to machines.
Because, Eddie, for Neo in our love story, Neo has gone from fascination to love to now he only loves humanity, Eddie. He feels the loss of Trinity. And the listeners can't see me smiling the whole time that he's shaking his head because I'm trying to come up with a spin. I could make a joke about he didn't lose his dog, so he doesn't care as much. I don't know. It's a John Wick joke.
And again, I mean, joke about John Wick, but like even that, like Keanu's better in that movie, but like the point of the first John Wick movie is that all the violence is a toxically masculine person trying to process grief in the only way he knows how, which is through violence, right? And that's kind of what I feel like the point of the first movie is. And so like that's not something Keanu Reeves emoting about loss is not something he's going to do well. That's not the kind of actor he is. And again, there's probably movies where we've done that just fine, but it's not in this movie. This movie
and not in Much Ado About Nothing either. I think part of the thing is to jump in and like really cement and agree with you. It's more of the fact that the script was written and there was nothing else for Trinity to do, so they killed off Trinity, and they didn't have time for Neo to be grieving over Trinity, so they just moved it along. And I think if they're also the writers and directors, the directing part of them would have been moving along too if they didn't want to be here. So they're like, hit the beat, let's go. And it has that feel to it.
I would have more sympathy for that if we didn't have an hour of fucking Zion War right before this. You couldn't have carved something out of that to give Neo more of an emotional arc.
So as much as we've deemed, I think, the Wachowskis for this, I'm going to say that this is probably a beat they took from Lucas, who is not the best at emotional beats in his movies, but is great at the technical pieces. And the Wachowskis were killing the technical pieces of this. And I think if their hearts weren't in it to make this movie, the technical piece would be more of a challenge for a creative to focus on than the emotional beats for something that for a story you've already told or didn't want to tell.
You know what? That's actually a good point. Like, I mean, it may have been a case of I'm going to present something here that I feel like the next movie will support me on. So I'm doing some forecasting a little bit here, but if the Wachowskis are like, fuck it, we're going to mildly undermine this film in a few places just because because all you want is spectacle, so here's some fucking spectacle, you assholes. And this might be one place that's happening.
Yeah, and that's what I'm feeling as I was watching it, but it really came to mind as we're talking through it. Like, that is what I'm feeling consistently throughout the movie.
Right.
And to some extent, we even see that today if you go back and look at like Game of Thrones, or if you look at potentially how The Boys just ended.
Well, I have not seen the ending of The Boys, but I have heard bad things.
They're more focused on bot rising than wrapping up The Boys.
Fair enough.
That's my review of Boys season 5, in case anyone's curious.
There you go. There are also people
anything else
mad
about
that
this?
Homelander was actually the villain, which just baffles the fuck.
Homelander's always been the villain, and
I know.
But my negative thoughts about The Boys season 5 is because it was so focused on bot rising. Because Homelander, I'm not going to spoil it for you, but anyway, Homelander's a weak character all around, and that's what most villain bullies are.
Right.
The machines plug Neo into the Matrix. I don't know why the machines had to plug Neo into the Matrix, given that he literally could jump into the Matrix without it, whose population has now been entirely assimilated by Smiths. Nothing but Smiths, every single motherfucker. Pausing. Eddie, if Smith is all these people, I would assume that there would have probably been other people from Zion jacked into the Matrix. Shouldn't Smith have more physical bodies? Smith, with the Oracle's powers, steps forth, telling Neo, "It's me and you, motherfucker." He has foreseen his own victory. After a protracted fight, Smith says, "Everything that has begun has an ending," repeating the words the Oracle said to Neo. And Neo saying, "Holy shit, I got an idea." And Neo appears to concede and is defeated by Smith, who assimilates Neo. Outside the Matrix, machines send a surge of energy into Neo's body of the source, which inside Neo causes a Neo-Smith clone to explode out, then all the Smith clones to be destroyed, killing Neo while restoring the Oracle and everyone else who is assimilated. The Sentinels withdraw from Zion. Morpheus and Niobe embrace. The city rejoice. The machines carry Neo's body away, becoming a very, very important point in the Matrix MMO for Morpheus' character.
Right. So this was one of the parts where the visuals really jarred for me, but I actually talked myself around it because the scene where Neo, it's raining constantly, and Neo's in the street of Smith's, it is very obviously green screened, like really, really obviously. And I actually talked myself around to that because I realized at this point, it's like all of the wonky special effects I've seen just in this movie, this is not a long running thing, but just in this movie, have all been a little off. And it's most off in this fight. And I was like, there's part of me that wants to go, maybe that's an interesting choice of the Matrix is starting to break down. And so we are seeing the special effects are getting not worse, but are more visible, more obvious to us because the Matrix is starting to degrade.
Yeah, it's chewing up all its own RAM.
Right, exactly. So like Smith keeps blurring all his people, and so he's taking up all the cycles of the illusion, and so therefore the illusion is less convincing as he gets more and more control of the Matrix. That does not pan out, but and the reason why I don't think it works is because if that were the case, that could have been the justification for the Oracle, right? It's like, I'm a programmer and I can't hold myself together as much because Smith keeps earning all my things, and that's why I look different. And that's why I act differently. Is because I feel like if it was intentional, we would have seen more of it till now. But it was an interesting thought in my head of like because again, all the design stuff looked really, really good. As much as we've been mad about it, it looks really fantastic. When this stuff's been like, little kind of dodgy. So, and this seems is the dodgiest of that.
I think it is. I don't know if it is intentional, but I think it's director's choice to make it feel more Looney Tunes. Like you remember the like the Barley Brawl, how that had the same visual effect there when they're essentially like two super people fighting. It started to essentially wear thin on the Matrix. This is two super people fighting, and it wears thin on the Matrix. I'm comparing those two, saying it is a director's choice to make it appear like that, to make it more cartoony.
I hoped so, because I feel like if it's director's choice, then that makes it a more interesting visual thing. And again, because it is so distinct between the two worlds, that's why it was in my head of like, this may or may not be it. Because the actual visuals of this fight are weirdly kind of meh.
But like the cinematography of it is spot on how I think like a Superman versus like Bizarro fight should work. Like when they hit together, windows are shattered and destroyed from the power of it. Like that should be even if you go and watch a new Superman movie, like the physics of this fight are not replicated in that movie, and I think it should be.
Right. But like for me, I got stuck on I'm so confident that I've told all my other selves to stay back from this because I cannot afford to have that many Smiths in the fight again after the 27 days of shooting I did last time. It's like, it does feel like corners were cut a little bit in this sequence a bit. But to your point, right, in terms of pure, like you said, Looney Tunes, we're going to destroy a city while having a fight thing. This movie nails it in ways that, even modern superhero movies don't quite get.
Yeah, like spot on. Like this would get all of my compliments from like that physics of a superhuman fight of that scale and power they should have. So, beautiful.
Right, and again, like I don't know if it's intentional or not. I'm inclined to go with you with saying it is intentional, but like the fact that the CGI is a little more obvious here actually works in that favor, right? It's like, of course, things look ludicrous and things. Whereas before, it was trying to be realistic, and I think that was we were jarring up against, particularly in the second movie. And now it's like, no, of course it looks a bit dodgy. So of course it's a bit ropey and people are just bouncing off concrete because we're super powerful now, and that's okay. And then so like I think if that was a tactical choice, then it's a good one. But it is also just kind of a long fight.
And I'm inclined to give the Wachowskis like a lot of, what's the right word for it? A lot of credit in assuming they're doing these things because they had such a distinctive vision for the first movie. And and regardless of my feelings about the sequels to it, based on that distinctive vision, you already had an idea. It's just a matter of if you made that idea hit like 60% versus 80%.
Right. And like there was no path for a third movie that didn't involve Neo and Smith having a huge fight, right? So like if you're gonna have a huge fight, this is the best way to possibly do that. Although again, how we got here was real hand wavy. It's like, I've talked to God in the machine, and so we have to go back and punch Smith, I guess. Sure, okay, whatever. But and of course they're gonna have a chat. They're gonna have a debate, a discussion at some point in their punching, because that's what they do now. They've done it for every movie now. They're gonna have that. And this again, like I think that I liked what Hugo Weaving was doing acting wise, because you could see the Oracle take control of his body a little bit.
Yeah.
And Smith was genuinely like, what is happening? What am I saying? What the hell? And like Hugo Weaving doing a really good job of like, I don't have complete control of my body right now. But there's nothing in anything that happened at that point in time that would explain why the Oracle would now suddenly have control over Smith at that exact moment.
I don't know. I would say the fact, all right, if we jump back to the Oracle scene where Smith assimilates the Oracle, every other simulation, you show Smith puts her hand in it. Even like with Neo, should have put a hand in, like the person becomes like a Smith's with the little mirror effect. Did the Oracle, the Oracle shifted to Matrix view of code, and then had like a big light effect, and then turned into a Smith. But even that Smith wasn't like all the other Smiths. So I could see why there'd be enough. I'm saying like the Oracle would be old code that is essentially like a virus inside the virus that popped up for Smith. Is how I view it. And that's why she doesn't have complete control over Smith. But when Smith was accessing a memory that he already had, activates a code, which is why the Oracle gets to say that little line that has Neo realize that this is what I need to do. It's foreseeing events.
So I guess my question is, did the Oracle set things in motion in order to get absorbed, or did the Oracle take advantage of Smith's going haywire and rapidly to make a plan on the fly?
I believe the Oracle set things in motion to be absorbed.
Okay.
That's why
if that is
the Oracle doesn't get up from the chair, the Oracle doesn't move. It's all
okay.
there.
If that is true, because there's something that just now coming to me, so I'm kind of talking and thinking at the same time. If that's true, then she manipulated the Merovingian to go into to do things he did. She's like, okay, this guy's lustful and prideful, so I'm manipulate the Merovingian and push Trinity and Morpheus specifically at the Merovingian to get him to ramp up what he's doing, right? And that's why maybe Seraph is there, is because the Oracle's like, you need to go take care of the Merovingian because it's part of my plan. Okay. Which means that she needs to have the Merovingian do that to get the train man to go after the family so that Sati could be drawn to her so that Smith could follow Sati. Which means the Oracle endangered a child just so her plan would go off, which is some Seventh Doctor bullshit.
But Eddie, that goes back to the Oracle we're not in my synopsis yet, but the Oracle is part of the program.
Right.
And no, I'm not going to say anything yet. I'm going to leave it at that. But yes. So anyway, I think Oracle old code, Smith activates the old code from a vision determining what it says. Oracle gets to have control to give Neo a line for Neo to go, oh, I could never win this fight.
Okay, so
because even in the fight with Smith, we see that Neo and Smith are fighting like this, and Smith is never going to stop because Smith's a machine. We've been constantly reinforced that Neo is human. Neo has all these superpowers, but Neo keeps getting beat and is tired, and the one is like wearing down.
Oh, okay. You know what? That's just fair, because then that explains why she's trying to convince Neo to be the one and to do these things. But with Smith, she doesn't bother to have the conversation because she knows she can't, because he has no free will. He can't make a choice. He can only be this relentless machine of absorbing things, and so that's why she doesn't even have a conversation with him. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
That's my
I actually like the Oracle scenes a bit more then as a result of them. I'll be honest.
Because we'll come back to the Oracle in a minute.
Sure, we will.
So in the end, people win, I guess, kind of, sort of.
Right. The Matrix is rebooted. Everyone goes back to their default states, which,
wait,
it's a computer.
Do you want me to read the last bit? Then we can just be done with this.
Yeah, sure. Let's do that. Yeah.
The Matrix is rebooted, and the architect meets the Oracle in the park, scolding her for having played a dangerous game. They agree that the peace will last as long as it can, and that those who desire to leave the Matrix will be allowed their freedom. The Oracle tells Sati that she thinks that they will see Neo again. Seraphim asks the Oracle if she knew this would happen. She replies that she did not know, but she believed.
Right, which is why I was like, is the Oracle making this up as she goes along, or does she have a plan?
Much like the Doctor, Eddie, the Oracle lies.
Right. Which is fair, because we know that, because in the first movie she told Neo he was not the one, even though obviously according to these movies she absolutely believes he is the one.
Yep.
So,
all right. If you don't mind, I'm going to jump in first because before I sort of remember it. Going back to original point, essentially we know that the architect told us that there had been like 6 other iterations of this version of the Matrix. They originally had one that was like a perfect society, like a utopia, heaven essentially. I think he also said they made another one that was sort of like a hell, and then they made these iterations.
Well, he made something like in that, because he said that some remnants of that made it into later versions of the Matrix, is why we get ghosts and vampires and werewolves and whatnot.
And then we have like these 6 other iterations, and Neo is like the 6th son of the 6th house of the 6th whatever.
Seven son.
Yeah. But I make all that joke to say that when Neo can see specifically in the Matrix, Neo sees Machine City as heaven. In mythology, hell is generally considered to be underground, and we've seen Zion. It looks pretty hellish.
Yeah.
And then the middle ground is going to be Earth, which is where everything happens. I think that this movie is telling us that the program that Neo did is kind of what generally all of them have done, and it constantly recycles itself loop through loop. And like Neo's choices were all the illusions of free will, which is what the Merovingian told us, that it's all an illusion of free will, regardless of what you do. And Oracle has manipulated every single thing to here, providing Neo choices that weren't real choices to create a piece, I think, that's going to break, that then redoes the cycle again and again and again.
So, but then why does the architect act like this is not his plan?
Because it could be essentially where we have like God and the devil having their own things going on. If there's so many religious contexts, and we know that Neo is Jesus, let's just like go ahead and put it at that base level for it.
Right.
Not my preferred thing to do, but if we put it there. And like that is what I'm pulling together. I had more, but I lost some of my train of thought. And I think it's a cycle that is not broken, is what I was essentially coming down to. Like everything in here is planned to be here. And that is why Neo can control machines in the real world, because there is no real world. It's like another simulacrum within a simulacrum within a simulacrum.
Okay, so all of the Zion stuff is just yet another simulation?
I think so.
You think simulation's all the way down? Okay. That is about the only explanation I think that makes all of this make sense.
I could be overthinking. But
well, here's the problem with these two movies, right? Is 80% of them are pitched to help explain things. And then right near the end here, it tries to reintroduce ambiguity, which I don't mind. I mean, that's one of the things we liked about the very first Matrix movie, is that there's a lot of ambiguity there, and we enjoyed that. So like conceptually, the idea of adding ambiguity and having metaphor and resonance is obviously it's not something we're disinclined towards, but nothing about the previous two movies, specifically the second movie, makes you think that's what's actually happening. The second movie was pretty straightforward, for example.
Yeah.
So for the third movie, kind of go, and now we're being ambiguous again. It's a bit of a tone shift, but arguably the first movie was also a lot of tone shift, so maybe that's something we should expect. So like maybe I'll put that aside for the moment. The idea that all of this was basically the Oracle's extremely elaborate plan to try to break out of the architect's cycles to introduce her own cycle is an interesting one. And basically co-opting the architect's vehicle for this, the one that he uses kind of a steam valve to safely channel human aggression out so that in a way that he can control by subverting that pawn and turning it towards her own ends, is interesting, with the idea that then Smith was just a random factor that screwed up both the architect and the Oracle's plans.
I'm leaning more towards all the events in this movie are events that consistently happen in all the programs things. So like I'm thinking of it as a computer. Essentially,
so even Smith is not random. Smith is a planned event.
Like Neo essentially becomes a virus. Smith is a computer's antivirus to go against that. Or you could switch them and reverse them. The thing is, computers eventually need to be rebooted because the programs run too long, they get hot. They reboot and then they like can run again for a long time. Essentially, that is the course I think this movie's taking. And because remember, if we go for like the architect said, we created this heaven, and eventually we had to create choice. So that means they created the Oracle to create this cycle. So the Oracle came after the architect. And we know the Merovingian is old code, because they say he's been here since the beginning. So that's why he would also know what both of them know, and literally tells us that choice is an illusion in the movie straight up.
Sure, right.
If you can trust an trustworthy character.
the metaphor does break down in the sense that if the idea is you have to reboot the Matrix in order to clear the bad code, then concepts of the Merovingian can't exist because he'd have to be in a buffer somewhere that gets preserved, right? So that's a side thing. I
We're using term
honestly,
reboot from the notes. I'm saying restart.
okay, sure. Regardless, I have been since the first movie kind of sliding more towards an order chaos dichotomy here.
Yeah.
In the sense that uh, all three of our factions, let's say, in the Matrix, there's the Architect, there's the Oracle, and then there's Smith, right? Um, the Architect is high level order, like literally, the clockwork universe. I have everything in a certain way, and it goes a certain way, and they all interact with these little things in a certain way. And if sand gets in the gears, that pisses me off. Very much that style of Lord of Order. Um, Smith is the fascist level of order. Basically you beat down non-conforming people until they comply. And then the Oracle is much more soft order, by managing people and key people directly and giving them the pieces they need. They will then spiral out and inspire other people. And we saw that with Morpheus, for example. She got Morpheus to become fanatical, and he was able to control a lot of people. And the whole thing of the one became a piece of that, right? And so when they're all in alignment, they all more or less work. They're all looking at their own chunk of the simulation. And then Anderson becomes a problem. He won't be beaten down by fascist authority. He's not easily swayed by soft power, and the Architect literally tells him how it all works, and he rejects it just out of hand. So he will not comply to any. He is chaos as far as the system is concerned, and so that's why he does shit like, I'm going to go talk to the machines because literally no one will expect that. He always takes the choice that no one will expect, that no one will anticipate, because he is a pure chaotic factor. And then that is what causes all of this to shift in the way it has. But even then, eventually things have to go back to an equilibrium. Eventually, order will start to manifest again, which is why we have the restarted Matrix. Things are in largely the same shape they were in before. Yes, there's peace, but we don't know how long it's going to last. And what's interesting is that I think from a high level perspective, I think both of our theories are valid, right? I'm saying yours is wrong or mine's right or vice versa. It's just there's two different ways to interpret the events of these films. And I think that's interesting. And that shows the genius of the Matrix as a concept, right? Yes. All of that said, the second movie was an okay film to get there. This one was genuinely bloated and a slog to get through. And along the way, there are some fantastic, innovative, exciting decisions that were made. And there are some utterly terrible, bad decisions that were made. And they seem to hit particular highs and lows in this movie specifically. Whereas in the first Matrix, because it's just one movie, there's not enough time for those highs and lows to really stick around long enough to matter. But because we have more time, and now it's on top of the first movie, all those things sit around more, and there's little things pop up like there's lots of references to hear about, like, we have to adjust the Matrix with modify the Matrix, like, but way back in the first movie, you had the whole deja vu concept, which was fantastic and elegant and worked really well. Yes. But for the 5 seconds it needed to be, it was great. If you tried to extrapolate that into 30 minutes of exposition, that just massively falls apart. So you can't use the same thing you used previously. The first movie had phones as a metaphor. The second movie had doors as a metaphor. And the third movie just didn't. Right? There's lots of things where, like, it's not quite genius and it's not quite terrible. But the further you get from the first movie, the more you can see both of those in isolation as opposed to the gloriously muddy mess that the first movie was, right?
So yeah. And I will second the genius it took to come up with a concept and attempt to get it to where it is now. All that said, I'm going to hold any real opinion I have until the end of the next recording.
Fair enough. Because we're obviously going to talk about The Matrix Resurrected, which is both a movie that no one thought needed to be made, including one of the Wachowskis, but also weirdly does address some of the things that this movie ends on. So I don't know. I haven't watched it since it came out in 2021, so I'm a little muddy on
Same
it.
here.
But I do
I
remember
remember it
being
not being well received.
I remember not being well received. I remember a lot of the response being this movie didn't need to exist. But I also remember me personally being very opinionated about a very specific chunk of that movie that I don't think anybody else agreed with. So I'll be curious to see if I still have those feelings and if I still want to articulate them next time around.
Hey, if people want to get in touch with you and talk about The Matrix 3, how it is the best Matrix movie, and you're wrong, where can they do that?
You can find me on The Matrix Online, which I'm sure is probably still alive somewhere. I'm sure someone's got a server up.
Archive.net.
Yeah. Neo 3574.5 on there or whatever. No, you can find me at pucksteady.com. And I would love to hear your thoughts about The Matrix 3 because I there's a part of me that wants to like it, but I give a lot of benefit of the doubt in the second movie. And I feel like this movie, I didn't have much left to give.
If you want to talk about me and The Matrix, you can come to the Discord and do it because I would happily discuss it there. Otherwise, you can catch me on my Patreon. I think that's pretty much it.
All right. So, you know how this works. Next time we'll do the final Matrix movie and we'll see how it turns out. We'll see you then.